So Shad Sullivan drove from Texas today, right? And we saw, you're a movie star. We already saw your video. So anyway, great. It's welcome to the stage. You have an RCAF farm, right? Or
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, we're ranchers. Okay. Well, sorry for the surprise. I didn't think I was coming over here, and I certainly didn't know I was going to talk. Oh, I got to stand in front of the camera. That might be hard for me to read. We'll get it done.
Well, I could read this. Well, you'll be on this camera.
Okay. I'll just need to read off of that or this. So we're good. It's going to be hard to follow up. Corey, that analogy of the shaking the can is the truth. And we know that history repeats itself, right? So we can all see what's coming. Thanks for having me, Joshua. This is top notch here. And there's only one thing wrong, is we need this whole room, this whole valley to be in this room. Because we need to educate these people about what's going on. And so today, I'm going to talk to you about the war on beef. And I'm going to hopefully help you understand how ideological infiltration is killing America into every system. So I'm a cattle rancher from southeast Colorado and Texas, and the war on beef is not just the war on beef, but it's a war on whatever you are a part of, right? And I will teach you that it's important to understand where there is beef, there is freedom. And that's what we're fighting for here today. So, my name is Shad Sullivan. I'm an American cattle rancher. I'm married to Thea. We have a 30-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old boy. His name is Beatty Lane. And you can see there's kind of a discrepancy in age there, 22 years. We ride for the brand. We love Jesus and America, and we make no apologies about it. Okay. I was born and raised in southeast Colorado in northwest Crowley County on Antelope Mesa. I went to Crowley County High School. I love showing that picture to people across America because that is a representation of rural Colorado. That is the oldest inhabited schoolhouse in Colorado. We're proud of it. I love to show people. It's beautiful. I don't know how many students we have now, about 400 K through 12th grade. Then I went to Wyoming to a 2-year college, transferred down to West Texas A&M. None of that mattered. We all thought our education mattered. It didn't matter. My education came since I got out of college in the, school of hard knocks. This is where my home is, northwest Crowley County. This is where I'll always be. I'm connected to the land here. This is Antelope Mesa. Population, us. That's all that there is there. You can see we are the headwaters, part of the headwaters of the Arkansas River Valley. So everything flows to the Arkansas River. Very dry climate, like you guys, 9 inches a year. Okay? But this is also our operation in Texas. We're at the headwaters of Bitter Creek in Archer County, North Texas, which is just south of Wichita Falls. And we have a different type of operation. So go ahead and go to that next. This is where it all began, pre-1900, when both of my families, my mom's side and my dad's side, came north of Boone, Colorado, at the foot of Pikes Peak. This is a picture from our house. We have a great view of Pikes Peak. And, the irony is here is I'm speaking on behalf of liberty and freedom, and that is America's mountain. That mountain is so close to my heart. I love to talk about it, and I love to look at it every morning. So we are a stalker operation. That's what I am. I'm an American cattle rancher. That's all I am. What this means is I buy the calves off of the man who owns the cow, and I grow those calves to a certain age or weight, and then I sell them. Okay? We also have a small cow-calf operation in north central Texas where we raise these calves off the cow. We bring them, we grow them down there through a certain portion of the year, and then we bring those calves up here and we finish them on grass. And what did COVID do for us? The farm to table movement, right? And so we sell all of this beef into the farm to table movement. It's been a fantastic blessing since COVID. All right, that's some of our product right there, okay? Okay, I am a member of the RCAF USA, Ranchers Cattlemen Action Legal Fund. It's the largest member-driven and funded organization in the United States. We have about 5,000 members across the nation in 42 states. We really represent these members on issues such as radio frequency identification, our fight against that, our fight for MCOOL, beef checkoff reform, market transparency, and discovery and competition. I sat on the board of directors for 6 years representing the state of Texas. I am now the private property rights chair, and this is why I'm here, because in 1999, through a very corrupt deal, in the first of its kind in America, through a public-private partnership, the State Land Board of Colorado and the Nature Conservancy seized land from my family in Colorado. Now, that kind of planted a seed inside of me to become an advocate for property rights. And so now, because of that, the State Land Board, in partnership with the Nature Conservancy, now owns over 2 million acres along the Front Range on the eastern side of Colorado. They are not to be in competition with the private sector, but they are. I also have experience with national heritage areas. We see them here. You guys know what a national heritage area is. The Carbon Summit Solutions Program. We've worked on feral horse issues, the BLM rule changes, and wool-free introduction, okay? So what is the war on beef? Well, we have to really dig into this. It's an attack on the Charters of Freedom, the Declaration of Independence, the United States Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. It is basically just a hijacking of liberty and freedom, okay? So, in the war on beef, I think I got the wrong one, but we'll make it work. So in the war on beef, we have to ask ourselves who, how, and why. Who is waging the war on beef? How are they waging it? And why are they waging it? So who is waging the war on beef? Well, we have to start at the very top. With everything we do, we need to start at the top and figure out what's going on. We know in America, our government is created from what? The bottom up. Local, state, national, all of it's supposed to be from the bottom up, not the top down. So it's a little different because all of these things that are happening in the world in the United States is coming from the top down. So we have to start at the top on who is raging the war on beef, and that is the global cabal. It's the elitists across the nation. It's the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, DuPonts, Bushes, and now who do we have? We have Gates, we have Schwab. Who else? Who's everybody complaining about owning all the land? Soros is part of it. Our intelligence agencies are becoming part of it. The multinational corporations. This is a problem. That's right. The global cabal, or the elitists, what you know them as, I call them the cabal, they're at the very top of the food chain. They control everything globally, right? They believe in political, financial, and environmental control. They believe in a single body of planet governance. They believe in population control. They're eugenicists. This ideological infiltration is not only anti-animal, it is anti-human, okay? They believe that your standard of living must be sacrificed at the altar of the New World Order. We've heard it here today, been here a short time. We talk about the New World Order. Nathan Rothschild says, I care not what puppet is placed at the throne of England to rule the empire. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the Roman Empire, or British Empire, and I control the money supply. Okay? Not to be outdone by our own David Rockefeller. He says, some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists. If that's the charge, I stand guilty and I'm proud of it. This is an American. Okay? So, at the very top, we have the global cabal, or the elitists. They have to have foot soldiers. Who's going to do their dirty work for them? Who's going to come and take what we have for them? We start at the United Nations. They're the very first, and they're the top. What is the United Nations? It's an international intergovernmental organization aiming to maintain peace and security. Sounds great, doesn't it? Sounds great. They have 193 member nations. The reality of it, though, is that the United Nations has been tasked to incrementally implement the New World Order across the world, right? They believe in, they subvert national sovereignty and integrate ESG through sustainable development. And that's why I'm here. Sustainable development. Everybody's heard about sustainability, right? It's a dirty word. So with that international intergovernmental organization, the United Nations, they team up with the World Economic Forum, who is self-selected, and that's an international non-governmental organization. They're aiming to improve the state of the world by engaging in business, political arenas, and academia. We know what's happening in academia. The reality is that they're just global lobbying organizations managed by self-selected stakeholders. Okay, we hear about stakeholders and misinformation all the time. You hear that? You get the hell out of there, right? Okay. So, we know that the United Nations and the World Economic Forum are not our friends, but they are the global cabal's friends. They are on record as saying tackling meat is the world's most urgent problem. That's the United Nations. I'm in the beef business. That's my way of living. Okay? There's only one animal that can sustain life in every form, and that's the cow. All right? Klaus Schwab said in Davos in 2023, you will eat much less beef. He also said you will own nothing and be happy, right? Am I boring you, ma'am? All right, let's get after this. All right. So at the global cabal, they have to have their foot soldiers, the UN, World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum and UN have to have their foot soldiers. So how do they do that? They use global governmental organizations like the World Bank, the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization, NATO. What did the World Health Organization do for us in COVID? They use global governmental organizations. The European Union, the African Union, all of them. What happened, what is happening in the European Union with agriculture? We've all seen them, right? They're seizing land in the name of climate change. They're euthanizing beef herds in the name of climate change. Dairy herds, right? They use non-governmental organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This sounds so good, right? George Soros's Open Society. The Clinton Health Access Initiative. Whew. Man, it all just gets better, huh? They use ENGOs, environmental non-governmental organizations. Greenpeace, the World Wildlife Fund, the Nature Conservancy. These people are not friends of freedom. They use corporations. Anybody see what McDonald's did yesterday, the day before? McDonald's come out and says we're going to sue the 4 largest meat packers, which control 85% of the beef supply in the United States. McDonald's is just as guilty as they are. But they use these corporations. Cargill's done less for the health of Americans and really citizens of the world than anybody, along with McDonald's, right? Tyson, Costco, Nestle, ADM. ADM, you have no idea how much ADM controls your food supply. okay? And they use radical ideologues, the socialist communists, the green activists, all of these people that, I like to say when I go to, what is that grocery store? There's one in Colorado Springs, Whole Foods. I like to go to Whole Foods and buy, organic vegetables, non-GMO everything. We get up there to pay for it, and the lady or the guy has purple hair, earrings from head to toe, tattoos all over, and I'm thinking I'm buying natural food, but I'm not paying a natural guy. It's just kind of funny. Okay, go back one. So, the UN and the World Economic Forum are foot soldier to the global cabal. Now go. So we have to ask ourselves, how does the war on beef rage? Well, it rages through climate change. Climate change is nothing more than an anti-animal, anti-human ideology, okay? So I'm going to teach you that climate change was the problem, sustainable development was the solution. All right? They say that cattle are leading to the anthropogenic climate change. What that means is it's man-made, right? They say cattle have the highest carbon footprint. That's not at all true. We know that proper grazing practices actually reduce the carbon footprint. The carbon is good, right? They want you to think it's bad. They say carbon are responsible for the majority of methane emissions. That's not true either. Cattle in the United States are less than 3% of the United States emissions. Agriculture as a whole here is 9%. But we have people like billionaire Richard Branson, who is an investor in Memphis Meats. Anybody know what Memphis Meats is? It's a fake meat company, the very first one, okay? And he is an animal rights activist, but he owns the highest polluting airline on earth, Virgin Atlantic. They're fork-tongued, is what I'm telling you. They say cattle are destroying rangelands and depleting natural resources. What's happening in the West? Everything's on fire. Why is it on fire? Because we have not mitigated through grazing or timber. That's the result of what's going on, okay? They say cattle place a burden on food supplies and lead to world hunger. Cattle are the only animal that upcycle non-edible forages and turn it into nutrient-dense protein. Okay? This isn't new. This fight isn't new. The United Nations predicted this disaster in June of 1989, where by the year 2000, entire nations were going to be wiped off the mat due to global warming. Right? Now, some of you guys probably came up in the era of, I'm not sure. We're in climate change. It was global warming. When I was a kid, it was acid rain. Before that, I don't know. Yeah, that's right. It was global cooling. Thank you for saying that. Okay. So we have who is waging the war on beef. We have to ask, how are they waging the war on beef? Easy, through sustainable development. This is every industry in the United States and across the world. You hear it all the time. Sustainable development, sustainable development. What is sustainable development? All it is production and consumption control. It's collectivism. It's communism. And if they can control what you produce and they can control what you consume, then they can control every aspect of your life. What's been said here today is phenomenal. You people have a great understanding and grip on this. They do this through sustainable initiatives, like the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. I first heard about this in 2010, and it worried me a little bit. And what the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef and the U.S. Roundtable for Sustainable Beef is a group of stakeholders from self-selected non-governmental organizations and environmental non-governmental organizations coming together to to create production standards for anybody who produces anything. In my case, it's the beef industry, right? You will have to abide by those production standard rules in order to enter the market. That doesn't sound like freedom to me. Right now, we have organizations, the USDA, global organizations, the United States government, the USDA, the FDA. You have cattlemen's organizations who have all adopted sustainable development policies that are pushing us down this road. Sustainable development is top down. It's governance, top down. What did I tell you earlier? We're bottom up, right? We producers will adhere to these production standards, or we won't be in the market. And whatever industry you're in, you will be the same way. Okay? Okay, so this is the United Nations. Has anybody not seen this? Has anybody seen this? These are the 17 goals for the United Nations. Now, this has changed over the years. 5 years ago, there was 5 goals. And they had identified some very, they identified 2, beef and palm oil, as the problem environmentally. That's what they had done. But if you can see, these are the new sustainable development goals. Number 1, no poverty, 0 hunger. But you get down into number 16 and 17, peace, justice, and strong institutions. Peace, justice, and strong institutions. What are we hearing about that all the time? ESG, right? Environmental Social Governance. DEI. And number 17, partnerships for the goals. Okay. Somebody here today already talked about public-private partnerships. In 2023, through an appropriations bill, the Sustains Act was passed. The author of the Sustains Act was G.T. Thompson, a Republican. These are not Republican-Democrat issues. Both of them are bad. Both sides suck. G.T. Thompson got the Sustains Act through. What does the Sustains Act do? It bypasses congressional rulemaking and allows agency heads to make rules and decisions at their sole discretion. This is in the first paragraph. And it prioritizes, number 2, it prioritizes public-private partnerships. Okay? Now, what is the danger of public-private partnership? And if you don't understand what that is where private money from institutions, from environmental organizations, from ideologues, is funneled into the federal government, into these agencies, because they don't have enough money to push that out and push these agendas into rules, and they team up. Now, the problem with that is that's happened before in history, okay? 2 people. The father of public-private partnerships, Stalin. Who followed him? He thought it was a great idea? Hitler. That's what public-private partnerships bring, is collectivism. Okay? The war on beef continues to rage through corporate and academic collusion. It's ideological infiltration into governments. We see it local. You see it locally. This infiltration. How do you think Colorado got a Democratic governor? Very slow infiltration. In 1992, when I graduated from high school, we were a red state. 15 years later, we were blue. They infiltrated into Colorado, into the lowest forms of government, and then they worked their way up. There's the Sustains Act. Has anybody heard of the Climate Solutions Act? Well, it was made available through the Sustains Act and provided funding for public-private partnerships to promote climate change in our institutions across the nation, okay? So, an example of this and what came from this is the USDA appropriated $5 billion without congressional authority to push into institutions in the United States such as ag media, colleges and universities, and other institutions to promote climate change. For example, Farm Journal got $40 million. Now, Farm Journal is our authority over all the other ag media. They own it. It's a corporation, right? They get $40 million to promote the climate change into the media. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I do know that this is exactly what Hitler did too. He bought the media. We see that here today in this United States. The media is bought and paid for. When you don't have a diverse media that has a diverse or non-partial opinion, they don't do their job, you're living under tyranny. They gave South Dakota State University Department of Agriculture $90 million to promote climate change and that agenda under the Climate Solutions Act. It rages through corporations. We've seen the centralization of our food supply systems. These are created by uninhibited power structures. That global corporate money coming down, right? What happened in COVID? During COVID? Did your grocery store have beef on the shelves? Nope. Did it have pasta? Nope. None of that. Because our food supply is centralized. What happened in COVID? No excuse for. 4 main packers or 4 beef suppliers controls 85% of the beef supply chain. That supply chain is right here. Everybody in those plants gets sick. They can't come to work. What happens? You can't get your beef processed. So this was an example that woke Americans up, and they're like, whoa, our food supply can go away in a matter of days, right? JBS, National Marfrig, Tyson, and Cargill. They're the ones that own the beef supply chain. Now, and they've all invested in alternative meats, but I will say this. If COVID did anything good for America, it woke people up to their food supply chain issues. And it made them realize that we need to regionalize and localize and get back to the farm-to-table movement, right? We need more farmers and ranchers. We need more processors. We need more local retailers, okay? They infiltrate through colleges and universities. In 2017, in Colorado, I helped Representative Kimmy Lewis from the southeast corner we wanted to put a placard. I'm all about mandatory country of origin labeling. I believe you deserve to know where your food comes from. We had a beef placard bill on the state level. All they had to do is take a recipe card and say, in their grocery stores, and say, this is a product of the USA or a product of Colorado. JBS USA, the largest and most corrupt meat packer in the world, whose owners have been in prison for corruption, on corruption charges, who sent millions of tons of rotten beef around the world, partnered up with your Colorado State University to create the Global Food Innovation Center. And the reason they did that was to kill the mandatory origin of country origin placard. Gave them $12 million. That was collusion. And then, of course, the Cattlemen's Associations, Farm Bureau, all partnered up with them, and it's all a pay-to-play system. Pay to play. Okay. Trade organizations. I mean, we have these trade organizations that are supposed to represent us on a grassroots level. But the problem is they've been infiltrated by these ideologues. Okay? The National Cattlemen's Beef Association, the American Farm Bureau, the Colorado Cattlemen's Association, Colorado Livestock Association, Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers, they've all signed on to sustainable development. They say we have to sit at the table or they'll eat us. I'm sorry. I don't negotiate with corruption. I'll give you an example. This year, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, if you don't know, is the largest cattlemen's organization in the United States. But they don't just represent cattle and beef producers. They represent the four main packers, who all have seats on their board, who all pay the NCBA to sit on their board of directors. Now, these packers are importers of beef. So is there loyalty to us as producers? No. This year at their convention, their keynote speaker was a guy by the name of Miles Allen. Miles Allen is the program lead, or the department head, of the Environmental Change Institute at Oxford University. He's the keynote speaker at the Cattlemen's Convention. His friend and research partner is a guy by the name of Dr. Marco Springman. He's a vegan activist. You know what a vegan is? A vegan don't want you eating any cows, right? Dr. Marco Springman did a study, a red meat health study on Americans. Now, why Oxford University is doing a study on Americans eating red meat, I don't know. He did this in 2019, and he published that study in the Public Library of Science, which is a nonprofit journal, okay? That nonprofit journal was founded by Patrick Brown, the CEO and founder of Impossible Foods. Impossible Foods is a fake meat company. This is a cattlemen's organization, highly respected, whose keynote speaker is a vegan activist who doesn't believe in eating beef. You see how it runs downhill? Miles Allen to Marco Springman to the Public Library of Science to Patrick Brown. It's nefarious in nature. Okay. The war on beef continues to rage through life, liberty, and property. We've all heard this today, right? The loss of private property. How do we lose private property? They're coming through in conservation bribery. You heard it. Conservation easements. What you guys are fighting here in the West, right over here, the BLM, the U.S. Forest Service. It's all conservation bribery, and once you take that money, it's never coming back. Your future on that land is over, right? Even though it might not instantly be over, the future is gone. Through public-private partnerships, we've already talked about that. Through public-private-public partnerships, these are new. So you have the Cattlemen's Beef Board, which is our beef checkoff. If you don't know what a beef checkoff is, we have to pay a $1 tax every time we sell an animal. That goes to the federal government. They share it with the state. They partnered with Cattlemen to Cattlemen, which is an affiliate of NCBA, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. And then they partnered, all three partnered with the Farm Service Agency to implement all of this climate agenda. Right? They do it through animal rights and environmental extremism. Remember, what was it, 16, the PAWS Act in Colorado a couple years ago, where it made anybody who did anything with an animal a felon? If I went and palpated a cow to see if she was bred or healed her up, the PAWS Act did not, the only reason it didn't pass in Colorado was because they made a mistake in getting it out of committee. It was a 2-issue. We can only have 1 issue on the ballot, right? Private property. That's why we're here. It is not about the cow. It is not about carbon. It's not about carbon pipelines. It's not about the BLM, the U.S. Forest Service. All of this that we're fighting today is about access to private property. We cannot live in a collectivist society or under communism as ordered by the UN through the New World Order. We cannot own land under that kind of society. It's all about the land. They're coming after the land in every way. Has anybody heard of the National Interstate Electric Transmission Corridor?
Yes.
Yeah, it's coming. My family, my mom's sitting right back there, was born and raised on the ranch that she lives on today. And we have been threatened with eminent domain by a power line company, XL Energy, if we don't take what they offer us for the 4 miles that they're going to go across right in front of her kitchen window. I can't negotiate with them. No negotiations. You take what we say or you take nothing. It's eminent domain, and we've been threatened with it. Okay. It's important to understand that because this is a private property rights issue, all of these issues come back down to private property. It's important for the people to understand that the three principles are the rights of the individual, the distribution of power, and guaranteeing natural resource access. That's what private property is about. Distribution of power, the rights of the individual, and resource access. If they have the land, you have none of that. That's why we're a free country, because of private property, okay? Go back just one, there you go. Okay, so this is a point I think it's important to make. You see the beef checkoff sign up there, and then you see the panda. So the beef checkoff is our symbol in the Cattlemen's Beef Board, which is a federal organization that takes our $1 per head. They partnered up with the Nature or with the World Wildlife Fund, who actually said that cattle were killing the planet. Why are those two organizations partnering up? Now, we've made a big enough stink about it. If they're partners, we don't know about it now. But the World Wildlife Fund has infiltrated into the Texas cotton producers. They want control of this production, okay? Okay, now you can turn. Who is the World Wildlife Fund? Well, their mission is to conserve nature and reduce the most pressing threats to diversity on life on Earth. Here are they had 15 high priority commodities. Beef was number 2. But the World Wildlife Fund, who has partnered with the beef checkoff, and now the cotton producers, said beef production is a major threat to our natural ecosystems globally. They say agriculture is the biggest threat. Jason Clay, who's their finance director, says we must take choice away from the consumer. Really? Okay, next slide. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have who, how, and we have to ask ourselves why the war on beef continues to rage. Well, it's simple. It's communism. That's what it is. It's collectivism. The political and economic doctrine that aims to replace private property and profit-based economy with public ownership and communal control. We cannot live in a free society without profit. We have to be able to take the risks to feed our families, right? It's controlling the means of production through collectivism. So when I talk about sustainable development, and you guys, sustainable development is implemented all across the state. You see all of these new apartment complexes in Denver. It's all sustainable development, 15-minute cities. London is a 15-minute city. You probably didn't know that. If you go outside 15 minutes, you have to report that. It's a 15-minute city. That's sustainable development. So in order for these global cabal or the global elite to get control of the people across the globe, they had to create a crisis. That crisis is climate change. Then they had to create a solution. That solution is sustainable development. Okay? It's production and consumption control. It's a total loss of personal and productive liberty. Okay? So I have a little rancher friend, Andrea Hutchinson, in Oklahoma, and she is a sweetheart. She's the number one expert on sustainable development in the world. And she actually created this diagram 25 years ago. She saw what was coming early. And I did not know this when I put this presentation together. She happened to come to my house and had this. And I said, my gosh, this is crazy. This is my presentation. If you can see at the very top, the global elite, and then in the middle, sustainability, create crisis, solve crisis. You see that? People are open to it, okay? So we have who, how, why, and how do we win the war on beef? Well, we have to reclaim our American values, and they talked about it earlier today. So many of you good guys know life, liberty, and property. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right. So what do we have to do? What do we have to do to win these wars? The war of freedom. We have to stand up. We have to, number one, I think we have to get back to a Christian nation. I think we have to return to God. Number two, I think that we have to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. We must become activists and get involved. I don't want to be up here. I'm a rancher. I don't want to go to a commissioner's meeting. I don't want to do all that stuff. But I want my kid to be able to taste freedom. It's all about what we got to experience. It's about leaving our legacy. And so we have to defend the Constitution of the United States. We must end corruption. We have 3 laws: the Packers and Stockyards Act, the Sherman Antitrust Act, and the Clayton Antitrust Act. Break these big companies up. They have too much money. Too much money leads to unmitigated power, right? So we have to end corruption. And I'm telling you, I was in Washington, D.C. last week. Washington is a pit of corruption. It is terrible. We have to get them out of there. I got an email this week. Well, this email came, they were wanting names for who was going to fill all of these roles in the U.S. Department of Agriculture. You know how many names they needed? In the Department of Agriculture alone, 254 names. Our government is too big. It's too big. We have to implement mandatory country of origin labeling. It's a freedom issue. People say no, it's government interference. No. Our Constitution allows us to create laws that ensure people's freedom, and the consumer, it should be ensured the freedom of choice, okay? And we have to support legislation. Most importantly, we have to buy American. We have to support local small business. Is it more expensive? Yeah, but our communities depend on it. They absolutely depend on it. Get involved, okay? Is that it? Okay. All right, so I'll just end with this. Back in the 1700s, England was afraid that France was going to invade. And England was a beef-eating society. They loved beef. France was not. And so they were afraid this war was going to break out. And Theodosius Forrest, he wrote this war ballad called The Song of the Day. And in that war ballad, he says, their people slaves of power and pride, fat beef and freedom are denied. What realm, what state can happy be when wanting beef and liberty? It is all interwoven, and I will leave you with this. Where there is beef on the land, there will always be freedom. But once they remove beef from the land, liberty and freedom are gone. And so I'd really like for you to remember all that. Guys, thank you very much. I'm glad I could at least come and talk, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that I don't know. So, thank you very much.